All right, guys, doing some raining. So I'm glad I got this door and some stuff taken care of yesterday. I don't know if you guys can really tell or not, but the wind is definitely up. So it's a great day to work on our power panel. All right, so to give you guys a good understanding here of what we got here, this is a 200 amp service panel. It's screwed onto a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of plywood. This right here is the top of the panel. This up here is the bottom of the panel. Okay, it's installed upside down. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave the two breakers at the bottom here. We're going to leave those empty, and then we're going to come up and then we're going to put in our 30 amp GFI breakers, and then we're going to put all our 20 amp stuff at the top, and then we'll leave the very bottom empty for like lower stuff like 15 amps, which will more than likely go to our lighting and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is, because this box here only has knockouts at the top and bottom, you can see them right there, the knockouts. They're mostly on the top and the bottom. There's really no knockouts here on the side, as you guys can tell. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to drill the side of this panel to put some knockouts and stuff in there so we can run our conduit straight out. Been working on the panel here today, and I had all the boxes laid out and stuff, and I decided not to go with that. I decided to put 4 at the top, 4 at the bottom, run my conduit out that way. And what we did was we had to pre-drill the side of the electrical panel right here, cleaned everything up with sandpaper, and then we had to do our offsets and bends with our conduit. Now, be sure to check out Sparky's channel. He's got some good videos on how to bend conduit and stuff like that, because this is my first time bending conduit, which, I mean, it looks like it's doing all right and stuff, but we got all of our conduit boxes and stuff in here. And to drill the metal, you just want to use like a sheet metal bit, something like that, to drill those panels and stuff out. And also keep in mind, you want to have bushings on all these. So there's a bushing right there. This one here doesn't have a bushing, but you need those bushings to be code compliant. But ultimately, guys, this is what we got so far. All right, guys, don't overcomplicate running your underground conduit, okay? What I did was I came inside the building there where our power panel was, measured down. I put 2 screws in the floor, which is where the hole's going to go, and then I just laid the conduit out, came up, stretched it out long ways, and then I put my 90 here, because you got to have these 90s angled just right. I think this bottom piece needs to go up just a little bit, but just lay it out like that. Simplify it. Don't be overcomplicated. Don't overthink it. And then go down each side of it, okay, with your orange marking paint, and just spray paint 2 lines. And you can use any kind of cheap old spray paint you can come up with. It doesn't have to be marking paint. You can use white paint, whatever cheapest stuff you can get, and just mark. All right, guys, day 2 here digging on this ditch. I stopped last night up there on where that heel is there and stuff. I hit some big rocks up near the power panel, hit a ground wire. Had to try to dig around that, slowed me down. And this evening, I'm working on it here. Been at it for probably about an hour, maybe 2, just digging down through here. And basically what I'm doing is I'm using a shovel, and then I'm going over to basically a mattox, or, you know, more or less a pickaxe, whatever you want to call it. But basically it's got a hoe on one side and then a pick on the other. And basically if I hit a rock, some of these rocks you can kind of crack them and stuff, so you hit them a few times with that pick, you can kind of bust them up a bit and then get them out with either the shovel or the hoe there. But more or less I'm digging down through there with the shovel. I get in the top broken open stuff, and then once I get down towards the bottom, kind of going back with that, digging it just a little bit deeper on down through there, and then raking it, using that hoe to rake the dirt. And then I'm getting it to like a certain point, and then I'll just take the shovel and dig it out, toss it to the side. As you can see, I got a pile of dirt lined up here, and you can look at that pile of dirt there. The important thing is whenever you dig a ditch, okay, see how I got my dirt piled up there? Leave a large enough space between the ditch and your pile of dirt. You don't want to put the dirt right up against the hole. A lot of guys do that. That way it's easier when they go to backfill. But the problem is, if it rains or anything like that happens, where does all that dirt go? It gets washed back down in the ditch. Then you got to go back and dig it out. So put the dirt off to the side. That way it don't fall back down in the ditch that you just dug until after you get your conduit and all that good stuff in there. But what we'll do next is I'm going to go ahead and get this ditch finished probably tomorrow, and then I'm going to go ahead and lay my conduit down in here, and then I'll measure from the side of the ditch down to the top of the conduit and get my measurements. It needs to be 18 inches, and what I'll do is I'll take the conduit out and I'll dig a little deeper, and I'll just keep at it until I'm 18 inches all the way down through there, regardless of where that conduit's laying. And then after that, I'll go ahead, put the conduit in there, and I have 2 options. Option 1 is I can put the wire in the conduit and then glue the conduit together with the wire already in it, or option 2 is I can run the conduit, then pull the wire through it. I'm not sure which way I'm going to go. I'll have to have help if I'm going to do option 2, which is basically put the wire through the conduit after I get it run. But I'll have 1, 2, 3 90 degrees in there, so that'll make it tough pulling it around these 90s and stuff. So it might just be easier to go ahead and run the wire down, run it to this point here, and then where my 90 is here, just push the wire through the all the fittings and stuff, and then put it up through the floor and everything, and then glue it together and stuff afterwards, which would make it a lot easier and stuff. But I don't know, we'll just have to wait and see how it all works out. But anyways, but yeah, this is the ditch. Let me try not to fall in here. I fell in here last night and hurt my knee, but as you can see, there's just a handful of the rocks right there that I've pulled out. And yes, that is no fun. Now this is the reason, anytime you're digging near a structure, even if you get like a ditch witch or whatever, or a trencher or something, you cannot dig near a structure. See that wire right there? That's my copper ground wire that goes to my power panel over there, okay? So if I would have been using a trencher and trenched right over here to this, I would have ripped that copper wire right out of the ground, not even known it. So there's a reason you have to shovel dig about probably 3 to 5 feet with it, you know, from a structure or a foundation, anything like that, because you just don't know what's there. And right there was a perfect example. All right, guys, so I just got the conduit fully installed. As you can see, it's coming up there through the bottom of the shed. Took a while to get it, but got it in there finally. Had to dig down the trench a little bit, get some high spots out of there. I put my level from one side of the ditch to the other, put my tape measure down to the top of the conduit, and I just drug a piece down the ditch back and forth a few times, trying to make sure I was deep enough. And once I got that sorted out, I went ahead, put all the conduit and stuff in here, glued it all up, got it all together. So it's 18 inches deep. We got it coming in right there, coming down from the building there. So this will supply our shed with the 200 amps needed for our crypto mining operation. All right, guys, so we got all the conduit installed into the side of the power panel. You can see all my boxes there. Went ahead and put my grounding wires and everything in, so I can go ahead and get started with the wiring. We got one strip of conduit that runs along the side of the wall over there. That goes to the fans. Then we got a light switch box by the door. There's a piece of conduit up there at the top for a light fixture, and if we come on down through here, there's another piece of conduit for a second light fixture. So I'm gonna have 2 light bulbs, one on each end of the mining shed, and then down here at the very end right there, as you can see, we're gonna have 2 receptacles for plugins, which will go to our fans. One fan is up there in the attic, and then we got 1 fan there and then 1 fan right there. So that's what'll go there into the middle, and then our panels and everything is here on the wall. Now I want to ultimately get that 200 amp service wire in that conduit, so I think I'm going to go work on that right now and see if I can get that in there. So we're going to fish tape it, then we're going to put a rope through, and then we're going to go ahead and pull the wire. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and strip down the wires and stuff here. And I sped this up, so this is about 10 times its normal speed. So we're going to watch this here in probably about 2 or 3 minutes time versus watching me for about 40 minutes strip down wires here and work on this panel. So first thing you want to do is you take your knife and you cut the tip of the wires towards the end of it, and you basically put a little notch in it. And then what you can do is you can grab the wires coating, and you can just like pretty much pull it down like you're seeing me do right now. Once I get it all stripped down and everything, and I get the paper there, I can either take my knife and cut it back next to where the wire comes into the panel, or I can take my linesman pliers and actually cut it there as well. So I'm stripping all the wire down. That wire that's actually got the orange coating is, I think that's a 10-2, which is a 30 amp wire. And then the yellow wire is, I think that's 12-2, which is 20 amp wire. I just inserted one of my 30 amp double pole ground fault breakers into the panel, and they have pigtails on them, which is those white wires sticking off, and those have to be attached to the neutral bar in our power panel. And on those breakers, there's actually 3 places to actually attach wires. One is for 120, the other is for 120, and then the one in the middle, I do believe, is for a neutral wire. So what I'm doing right now is I'm measuring out my copper wires and stuff off of those 10-2 wires, and I'm cutting it to size, and I'm tucking it along the side of the panel. And we're basically starting to wire those up, 30 amp breakers anyways. So that's what I'm working on, you guys can see here now. And now I'm taking, it looks like the black wire, and I'm working it up to one of the breakers, taking my wire pliers there, and I'm cutting it to size, stripping it down, and then I'm going to put it into the actual breaker itself and tighten it down with a screwdriver. So once I do that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to work here and get all these wired up and stuff. So right there you can see I'm using a white wire. And I'm taking black electrical tape and wrapping around it, because that white neutral wire is actually going to be carrying 120 volts. So by wrapping the black electrical tape around the white neutral wire, I'm designating it as a
120. So that's actually going to be a hot wire. Now you can use black tape, you can use red electrical tape, but it's good to mark the wires as they're coming into the panel as well as at the breaker's location. It is code required, it is allowed. You can use electrical tape to designate wires like that. So that's one of the things that you got to do and stuff, but we're doing that. And as you can see right here, we're stripping the rest of the wires down, getting them all tucked away in the panel, cutting the coating and stuff off, and I'm just pushing the wires off to the side.
All right, guys, so I've been wiring this panel, been working on it here for a while, and as you can see, we got 4 30 amp double pole breakers that's ground fault installed. They come over to the neutral bar over here on this side, and they're wired in. I'm using a neutral wire to do the 240 here, so when you're doing that, you got to make sure you mark the neutral wires. It's got 240 on it with black electrical tape, so we are doing that. We also got it marked down here at the bottom as it comes into the panel on both sides. So these neutral wires right here are actually going to serve as hot wires. So this would typically be like a red wire in most cases, but it's actually white. Additionally, up here at the top, we got basically 11 20 amp breakers here. This is going to do our 120, and then we got all of our wiring and everything stripped down. A big wiring mess basically right there, all the wires hanging down. So this is what your panel is going to look like before you get it all wired up and stuff. So you just got to take your time at it. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll separate all the whites from this side here. I'll tuck them along this side nice and neat, work my way around, bring them in, and tie them into this neutral bar up through here. As you can see, I'm getting some of the big wires already tucked in the side there. What's coming at the bottom here, those 30 amp wires. I've already taken care of those. We're just going to keep working at it, work them up the side here, work them in. We'll get the neutrals done, then we'll come in, we'll do the grounds, and then I'll basically tie everything in, all the hots and stuff to the breakers. And then after that, we'll get started down through here wiring up all these receptacles, and then more or less we'll be finished with our wiring.
All right, guys, so I'm currently wiring up the electrical panel here, and what I'm doing is I'm taking all my neutral wires and I'm tucking them along the outside of the panel there, and then bending them, cutting them, and stripping them down and inserting them into the neutral bus and tighten them down with a screwdriver. And I'm just doing one wire at a time, and once I get them all up in there, then I basically zip tie them and then cut the zip ties and stuff. That way they're nice and neat. Now I'm currently working on my copper ground wires, and I'm running them alongside the panel, cutting them to size, putting them into the grounding bus, and then tighten them down as well. Now, it doesn't matter if you do the copper ground wires first or the neutral wires first, but the main thing is to do your hot wires last. So the black wires, I'm basically separating the copper and the hot wires, pushing the hot wires off to the side and working my way around the panel there. It's a good idea to buy yourself a nice set of wire strippers because you're going to be using them a lot, and you're also going to want to get yourself a good screwdriver. Now, you can get yourself a square screwdriver, which helps a lot. But one of the things that you want to actually do, which is really important, is when you're cutting these wires down and you're stripping them, on the side of the breaker, there's actually a strip gauge, and that's why you can see me holding the breaker in my hand there with the wires, because I'm checking to make sure that the wires are being stripped to proper size before inserting them into the breakers. Now, one of the things I didn't mention earlier, and you want to do this on all of your aluminum connections, which is mainly the 200 amp service wire that's actually coming into the panel, as well as in the sub panel and stuff outside, is you actually want to use an anti-corrosion compound. So what you'll do is when you strip your aluminum service wires, your 200 amp wires, is you'll actually basically squirt a little of this compound on them and rub it on the sides of it before putting the wires into the holes and tighten them down, and that'll prevent corrosion and things like that. But I'm currently getting the wiring here wrapped up, so we'll go ahead and move on to our next segment.
All right, guys, I have a hell of a mess, but we do have our power panel wired. So let's walk over and take a look at this. So give you guys a close-up. What I've done was I went ahead and I ran all of my neutral wires first, wrapped them around the top of the panel, down the side, over, and tied them into the neutral bar over here. Then I did the copper ground wires, looped them around, tied them to the side. I zip tied them up here at the top so the hots, the neutrals, and the ground are separate. Now, for the 30 amp wires, which is these orange ones down here, they come up here, and where they come into the panel, this white wire here is going to serve as a hot. So that's, you know, sometimes that's a red wire, other times you can use a neutral. But I put a piece of black electrical tape on these to identify that that is hot. it comes up. It comes in to these 30 amp double pole breakers. So these are double pole ground fault breakers, and that's what these are tying into. So those are both hot right there. That's why there's black electrical tape there. So we got 4 of these for our panel. Then up here at the top we have 11 20 amp breakers, which are single pole breakers, which are 120 volts. These down here are 240 volts, okay? So to give you guys an idea of how a bus bar works in a power panel is you got 120, you got 120, and it comes up and it offsets over, and then this one comes up and it offsets over, okay? And it does that all the way up. So to get 240, you're pulling from both of these 2 bars right here, all right? That's how that all works and stuff. But anyways, that's what a power panel is going to look like once you wire it up. I've been at this for a few hours, but don't get overwhelmed. You would say, oh my God, I got all these wires. What am I going to do? You just separate the wires the best you can, strip them all down first, and then, you know, hook up your neutrals and hook up your grounds, and then put all your hots in last, okay? And stuff, and that's what you want to do. You got to make sure you got your bushings and stuff back in here on the sides. You can see them right in there. Those are bushings. They go over top. The fitting, that one's a little loose, but you want to make sure you got all your bushings and stuff in there, okay? Because the inspector will fail you if you ain't got those bushings. And I think I've got a little too much of this sticking out. Might not have enough, but I'm pretty sure that any electricians that's watching this right now, they're probably saying, dude, you insult my profession, which is probably the truth, because this panel looks god awful. This is not a professional panel install. This is a homeowner DIYer install. And just keep in mind, guys, I am not an electrician. So be sure to do your research and everything. But before I put any kind of juice or anything like that on this panel, I'm going to have an electrical inspection done, which is required in my area. I do have an electrical permit. Keep that in mind. So the electrical inspector is going to come out. He's going to inspect all this. He's going to inspect all the receptacles. He's going to make sure everything you know, is safe, and then we'll cut the juice onto it and stuff. But that right there, what you see, this is prior to an electrical inspection, so something might be wrong in this panel. So don't use this as a you know, like legitimate here as a professional install. Other notes to keep in mind is on your ground bar on the left, on the one side, either or side, but on your ground and your neutral, you're only allowed 1 wire per hole, okay? That's something that's important to note. Some guys will shove 2 wires in there. That's a code violation. So yeah, keep that in mind. And then your green ground screw needs to be in the top of your ground bus, which grounds to the panel itself, okay? That's what that green screw is, that grounds. You don't want that on the neutral side. And if this is a sub panel, which is basically what this is, you want to take the bar that ties the 2 sides together out, okay? An example of one of those bars is somewhere in my mess right here, but right here, this is an example of that bar. If it's your main panel, you would have both of these bonded together like so. See how that bonds both sides together, the ground and the neutral? But since this is a sub panel, you remove that. You don't want that in there. So like I said, I'm not an electrician, but ultimately, guys, we got our panel here all wired up. You guys can do it. It's not that hard. And you know, just do a little research, know what you're doing. I highly recommend you get yourself an electrical book, you know, on wiring and stuff. Black & Decker has a good one, so definitely check that out. But anyways, guys, got our panel all wired up and installed. Now it's time to get started on all of our receptacles, and I'll probably work on that tomorrow because it's been a long day, and I've already cut my hand open right there on my finger, so that's, yeah, my finger hurts. I don't feel good. I'm tired. So yeah, good day.